Cha-chang, cha-chang, Midi gang. What it do, YouTube? It's your boy, Mid Financialist, here with another video for y'all. It's Monday. This channel doesn't, post and upload nearly as much as this other channel, the main channel, does over there at El Schmitty, but we do still get after it. Neither here nor there. So we got two videos for y'all today, two bangers for y'all today. Maybe I'll drop one of them today. Maybe the other one's a Yonday video. Maybe the other one just comes the next day. But I saw Andrew was talking about this, and I was like, oh, we got to get on Andrew. Because, Andrew, the CIA analyst. So if you want to hear what I would have to say about Andrew, go tap in with the El Schmitty Twitch. El Schmitty Twitch be getting into this. We be talking with the CIA people about it. You know what I'm saying? We be talking with the CIA people. But today we got Iran is next. Venezuela was never about oil. Now, I'm sure he's going to speak about it too. This is why I wanted to go off of him. But Iran, I'm pretty sure right now, is under internet shutdown. Internet shutdown, meaning they ain't got no internet. They trying to suppress what the hell going on in there, which is pretty big. And Venezuela was never about oil. I was hinting at that in the last video if y'all saw. Allegedly, Venezuela has about 600,000 Bitcoin, which is a lot of Bitcoin. That's more Bitcoin than the United States. Almost double the Bitcoin that the United States has. So when we look at factors like that and everything that's going into play, there's a lot of stuff that's happening right now that really, really requires people to start paying attention. So, without further ado, nobody's going to tell me I had something in my hair right here, bro. Y'all always going to say nothing, bro. Bro, that shit still, bro. Alright, anyways. Into the gang, Midi gang. Let's
one of the most important things that's happened in geopolitics in a very long time.
Damn.
The United States.
What a way to start. The United States launched an unprovoked attack
into Venezuela and captured Nicolas Maduro, where he was removed from power, and almost overnight, the geopolitical chess game that's being played in the world right now
just got amplified
completely.
Turn it up once. That's what he's saying. Like us in America, I was at rehearsal and they was talking about this because my brother Keith White, the legend himself, great stellar actor, but also was in the Air Force and was like, we're supposed to mind our own business about what goes on in our country. Whatever goes on in Venezuela is Venezuela's business, as long as they're not impeding on America. So there's no reason we should be, even if it is for our benefit, invading them, was his argument. I'm not saying he's right or wrong. I'm just saying that was his point. And to his point, this is why when you do stuff like this,
it happened very fast. And
other countries start acting up too.
And if you've been following the news, you've probably heard the explanation.
This from the beginning has been about getting rid of Maduro, grabbing Venezuela's oil for American oil companies and Trump's billionaire buddies.
And that's because Venezuela holds roughly 300 billion barrels of oil reserves, which is the biggest in the world.
Also, like the cut, Andre. Mr. Jick got a haircut.
At around $57 a barrel, that puts the total value at roughly $17 trillion.
Goddamn.
Now, even if you wholesale that whole amount at 50% off, we're still talking about oil that's worth close to $9 trillion. And let me just put that number into perspective, because that is more than the GDP of every country on Earth except US and China.
Damn.
Now, that is roughly 4 times the size of Japan's economy.
Every country? Damn. Us in China are really the only ones making guala like that?
So yes, there's definitely a lot of oil.
Crazy, I didn't know
and
nobody else
some
could
people
compete.
think that's what this is about. Now, that story is not completely wrong. Venezuela really does have huge amount of oil reserves, and oil still powers the world and the global economy. But the truth is, oil has very little to do with this story. If this was really about oil, this operation would have happened years ago, when Venezuela's production of oil
is true. We've been knew they had
way
it
higher, and its infrastructure was less damaged. So then the question is, well, if it's not about oil, then why are we told it's about oil? And that's because that is the story that's easiest to explain. But behind that story is a much more interesting reason. And that reason is how global power actually works in the modern day. So in today's video,
so he's not talking about Bitcoin,
y'all. What that reason really is, why Venezuela was so important to the US, and why China, Russia, and Iran all matter here at the same time.
So Iran's in big trouble. It looks to me that the people are taking over certain cities that nobody thought were really possible just a few weeks ago. We're watching the situation very carefully. I've made the statement very strongly that if they start killing people like they have in the past, we will get involved. We'll be hitting them very hard where it hurts. And that doesn't mean boots on the ground, but it means hitting them very, very hard where it hurts. So
Drones.
And once you understand this chessboard,
that means drones. Where it hurts is them drones. Them drones hurt.
hopefully you'll
We
be able to
already hit
understand
around
the
last
rest
year,
of
bro.
the
Back
world
to back, we going
and
Drake on
where
these
it might
niggas?
be going next,
It's not
and
okay.
how it might affect your investments. This story is not just about oil and Venezuela. It is so much more interesting. So with that said, let's get into it.
I love an interesting
Hi,
story.
my name is Andre Jick. Hope
I
you're
love
doing
an
well.
interesting
Come for the
story,
finance
chat.
and stay for the oil. Except this time, it's not actually about the oil. And if you don't believe me, here it is directly from Marco Rubio.
First of all, let me go back up. We don't need Venezuela's oil. We have plenty of oil in the United States. What we're not going to allow is for the oil industry in Venezuela to be controlled by adversaries of the United States. You have to...
See, it's not about that we need they oil. We got plenty of oil. That's why I was like, see, we buy so much oil that it's like we just got oil in stockpiles that we don't even use. It's just reserves. I understand that much. That's why, like, the other day, somebody got on me in the comment section saying, really, you thought America had just as much oil as goddamn fucking Saudi Arabia? What are you, fucking excuse? No, I'm not a knock nuke, you knock nuke, alright? I was just freaking speaking on our reserves,
Understand,
bro.
why does China need their oil? Why does Russia need their oil? Why does Iran need their oil? They're not even in this continent. This is the Western Hemisphere. This is where we live. And we're not going to allow the Western Hemisphere to be a base of operation for adversaries, competitors, and rivals of the United States.
To quote him, he says, "They're
Fair
not
point.
even on this continent. This is the Western Hemisphere. This is where we live, and we're not going to allow the Western Hemisphere to be a base of operations for adversaries, competitors, and rivals of the United States."
All right.
And this is where it helps to really understand how the United States actually works. You see, we have to understand about the President of the United States is that he's not the one to come up with these ideas to get into Venezuela and take out the leader. As much as some people may love the president, he was not the mastermind of this idea.
He wasn't the one who said, turn on them Chief Keef, go invade and go grab that boy. Nah, he just was
That
the
would
one
be
who
the job
dropped
of
the
the
tweet.
Pentagon. Once the Pentagon
Pentagon's
analyzes
dope.
the interests of the United States, it then tells the president about the plan, to which the president can decide yes or no. Here's a very basic understanding of how this decision was made. There's three main things that need to be true at the same time for the US to do this. Number one, a rival power puts itself in a strategic region. Number two, that region starts to affect global trade, security, or leverage.
What are we talking about here? Taiwan, chat?
And three,
Taiwan?
it sits
Or are we
inside
talking
of
about
or
Venezuela?
close to America's enforcement zone, aka where the military bases are.
Yeah, because Venezuela ain't that far from us. Venezuela is like probably an hour and a half on a flight from Florida.
Now, Venezuela checked every single box. First, geographically speaking, it sits inside the Western Hemisphere, which the US has treated as a core security zone for hundreds of years.
How we just gonna call... Wait, hold up. Run that back. How we just gonna call this part... I mean, I guess West is West. You know, who am I to say that just because it's not on that... You know what I'm saying? But, like, all right. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is it really? Like, okay.
As a core security zone for hundreds of years. Proximity-wise, Venezuela is close enough that if another country put its military there, it would threaten the mainland.
Maybe like a 2-3 hour
So that's number
flight
one.
chat.
Number two are the resources. Now, oil is nice, but the U.S. has plenty of oil. What the U.S. needs are strategic materials that are used by modern weapons, electronics, and defense systems. Those are the
We need to
rare
make
earths.
batteries.
And that's where China comes in. China has rare earths, but China and Russia also both need oil. Now, China has invested $100 billion into Venezuela, and they became close friends.
100 billion? They need oil bad.
The last thing the US wants to allow is for China's presence to dominate and to get their discounted oil from Venezuela while using their currency instead of the US dollar. That's a leverage point. Very important that other countries understand. It's not okay to use their money to buy our oil.
They're going to, from now on, do trade in their own currencies, get right around the dollar. They're creating a secondary economy in the world, totally independent of the United States.
Shout out Jake, bro. He went MSNBC to Fox. Respectable, you know?
Okay, but then you add the third layer.
Gotta hit both
Venezuela
sides.
wasn't just allowing foreign money to be traded for oil. It was also hosting foreign advisors,
What are you doing?
intelligence
She
sharing.
be being bad sometimes.
Now, these aren't necessarily GDP or economy-related things, but they're still huge threats to the U.S. because now we're talking about projecting power to the world. Now this is happening inside the Western Hemisphere, inside what the U.S. considers its security perimeter. And you put all these...
See, this is why you mean to tell me part of Africa is in the U.S.'s security perimeter? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's like a pretty fat gray area just because it's the Western Hemisphere.
three
Like,
things
what?
together, and that's how the Pentagon makes its decisions. You have geography, a rival presence inside your gates. You have your resources, which are strategic materials like silver, gold, rare earths, and most importantly, currency settlement, right? Which money we're using to trade these things.
And then for gang who don't, when he's saying currency settlement, he means when a country buys stuff from another country, most of the time currently, it's changing right now, but most of the time in the past, they use US dollars. Even if Australia is trying to buy oil from Venezuela, most of the time Australia is going to pay Venezuela in US dollars because US dollars has kind of like been a baseline currency. But China's like, fuck all that, bro. We going to the gold standard. We're going to with this gold little thing, bro. Hey, they trying to change a whole lot of stuff, okay? And same with Bitcoin. I mean, like with Bitcoin is like that's kind of the plus to crypto is that you can dodge these sanctions that governments try to put on things. So if the government says, hey, you can't buy that because of freaking, what do you call it? You know what I'm saying? Because, oh, we're going to freeze the dollars. Or,
And then you have security.
I'm not a
Militaries
genius,
working
so I'm
close
not going to
together,
sit here
close to your
over-explain,
house.
but yeah.
Any of these by itself could be managed, maybe two, but all three at the same time on America's side of the world, and that's why this happened when it did. Okay, now you might be asking at this point, Andre, I don't know if I really believe that all of this is happening, and how do you actually know what's going on? And the truth is, I don't know for sure.
Fair, Andre, I'm not asking
all of
that.
this
Trust
is
you, my
based
guy.
on very high
Trust you, my
level
guy.
military
So
framework,
does Midi Gang. Midi Gang,
strategies,
trust you,
and
my guy.
theories. But once you understand them, you'll be able to understand what's happening in the world and what might happen next. And I want to share those theories with you right now. But first, here's something I've been personally doing to keep stacking sats while this plays out with the Gemini credit card. This is Gemini
That
use it.
card
4%
is
mindset
lit.
groceries,
I
problem
can't
Spanish,
get it.
and have 2 on
So
encryption
you
and your free
guys
start
don't
years.
need to worry about
And
it.
it's one of the oldest and most consistent views of U.S. foreign policy, and it explains American foreign policy for about the last 200 years or so.
Monroe Doctrine. We sort of forgot about it. It was very important, but we forgot about it. We don't forget about it anymore. Under our new national security strategy.
He said it. It was important, so we forgot about it, but we don't forget about it anymore, nigga. What?
American
What do you
dominance in the Western Hemisphere will never be questioned again.
It was first talked about in 1823 by President James Monroe, and at its core, the idea is actually very simple. The Western Hemisphere, aka the left side of the world, would not be open for foreign powers to colonize, militarize, or use as a base of operations. Now, at the time, the US was talking about Europe. The United States basically said,
Yeah, right.
if you're a European empire, don't bring your wars, your militaries, or your influence into this part of the world.
Yeah.
In return, the US was like, we will stay out of the European conflicts. That was the deal. Now, over time, obviously, that idea has evolved. The Monroe
Ain't
Doctrine
nobody worried
stopped
about
being
Europe.
about just colonization, and it became about anything related to influence or US interest. In the modern day, it's about whether rival powers are embedding themselves economically, militarily, or strategically in the Western Hemisphere in a way that threatens US interests. That is how I know when Marco Rubio says, quote, "This is the Western Hemisphere, this is where we live, and we're not going to allow it to be a base of operations for adversaries." Everything he's saying is borrowed from the Monroe Doctrine. He's saying it doesn't matter if the influence is foreign soldiers, supply chains, oil, rare earths, whatever.
He said, I don't give a
The
damn
rule
what they
is that the
doing.
United States
We intervening.
does not want hostile power projection inside its hemisphere, aka its half of the world. And throughout history, this doctrine has been invoked over and over again. During the Cold War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, and every time it's followed the same format. When foreign powers threaten any of those US interests, and they're too close for comfort, geographically speaking, that's when the response escalates. But the question is, hold on, because Venezuela didn't just suddenly become important in 2026 or even last year, so why now? And the truth is, it's actually been a long time coming, but what really changed is that Venezuela started to get too close and too friendly with an adversary. And it's an adversary that the US does not want to allow to build a home and use its resources on this side of the world. So that's the Monroe Doctrine. And that brings me to the other side of the world. And once you understand this one, it'll hopefully also let you understand what's happening and what might happen next. So far, I've told you about the left-hand side of the world because that's how the United States has spent the last 200 years defending itself. But the rest of the world, aka the right, or the Eastern Hemisphere,
Rimland,
has been playing a very
All right.
different game. Over 100 years ago, some of the earliest geopolitical thinkers asked a very basic question. What actually gives a nation its power? And out of that question, two ideas became the main forces that explain the Eastern Hemisphere today. One of those ideas is called the Heartland Theory. And the theory is very simple. If you control the center of Eurasia, Europe and Asia, the huge land core that
Eurasia, Europe and Asia. That's actually my first time hearing that, chat. So they call that the heartland. Nigga, that's Russia. Like, am I tweaking? Is Russia not its own continent? Guys, is MIDI gang stupid? Like, that's mostly Russia, bro. I get it's a lot of Asia, too.
that stretches across Eastern Europe, Russia, and Asia, you control the most defensible, resource-rich region on Earth. And if you control that, you eventually control the world. Okay.
Interesting.
But then there was another idea of how to rule the world. It's called the Rimland Theory, developed by an
So they running two theories at once? That's what I was wondering. I saw Heartland and
American
Rimland. What?
strategist. This theory says, no, actually, you don't have to rule all that land. Instead of focusing on the center of the map, look at the edges, the coastlines, the trade routes, and where economies actually connect together. If you control the outer perimeter of those strategic
feel like that
areas
makes more
instead of
sense.
the inside,
Because there's a whole lot of irrelevant shit up there in Russia. Like a whole lot of just snow that, yeah, y'all might got some minerals over there, but I don't give a fuck.
you have a much bigger advantage.
Yeah.
If rival powers control the countries along your coast, they don't need to actually invade you. They can just box you in.
They can just,
They
yeah.
can limit trade. They can limit naval access. They limit your ability to project power to the world. And over time, that puts landlocked countries at a disadvantage. And Russia is the perfect modern example of this.
Yeah.
It controls huge territories across Eurasia.
Russia is pretty much fucked, bro. Russia is over here trying to fight for Ukraine because they lost all of that during like the world wars and everything. They lost all kinds of territory, and they over here just to try to fight back. But Russia is fighting for pride at this point. Like, remember when we was worried about Russia as Americans? Us Americans over here. Remember when we was all like, communism in the country. Oh, and Russia is so bad. You're from Russia? Oh, get away. Bro, Russia ain't a problem. Russia doing their thing. Bruh.
The classic
Russia's
Heartland
just
theory.
like a big ally.
But most
to,
of that
to China.
land
You know what I'm saying?
is either landlocked or frozen for a huge part of the
That's
year.
why they want Ukraine.
That's
see,
why
'cause-
Crimea matters so much.
Crimea.
It gives Russia a year-round warm water naval port into the Black Sea, and from there into the Mediterranean, and that's why Ukraine is also very important. Ukraine sits between Russia's heartland and the sea. If Ukraine joins NATO and the West, Russia is cut off from important maritime routes. So from a
That's why
realm
that's
theory
why Russia just keeps
perspective,
going for it.
that's really, really bad. This is why controlling the inside alone is just not enough. You can own endless amounts of land and minerals and manpower, but if other powers control the coasts,
If you can
the
send
ports,
it,
and the
everything,
seas,
yeah, no.
they control the rules of the game. That's also why Russia reacts the way it does and why it does not want Ukraine to join NATO. So now that you hopefully understand the...
Bro, but like in the future, doesn't this all, like, don't get me wrong, all these theories, like this Monroe Doctrine was, y'all heard back in the 1800s, and this theory probably got formulated sometime around then in the 1900s, but like, doesn't this all go out the window once helicarriers get built? Like, once a nigga can really figure out how to make a helicarrier to take this from here and fly it over there, rather than, because right now, like, there's no way you could lift that heavy stuff in the air. But like, a helicarrier though,
big picture. Let me tie all these theories and strategies together to paint a very basic picture of what's happening. So the world we live in right now is not just run on oil anymore. Yes, oil is still very important, but we have to look at where the ball is going, not where it has been. And in the future, it's the rare earths, right? It's the data infrastructure, the ability to keep building weapons and electronics and technology, AI, and eventually the robots. And this is where the United States has a very real problem. Under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the Department of Defense, or I guess the Department of War now, set aside $7.5 billion specifically for critical minerals, with already over $1 billion that's been spent to stockpile some of the rare earths and minerals that the US needs. But there's a problem. Right now, the United States is 100% import reliant, meaning we have to get it from someone else, for 12 critical minerals.
Damn.
And more than 50% reliant for 28 out of the 50 materials that are classified as essential to national security. So the US can't just swap them out for something else. They are
so we're desperate. We need those.
irreplaceable. Now, China controls between 60 to 95% of global processing capacity for most of these critical minerals. And even more importantly, China processes about 91% of the world's rare earth elements. So the US needs something China has, because those supply chains almost always pass through Chinese refineries. And that creates a choke point. It gives China a very powerful leverage point. And this is where Venezuela becomes a lot more important than most people realize, because Venezuela doesn't just have oil. It also has huge deposits of things like coltan, rare earth elements, gold.
Hugo Chavez understand that what he possessed was, when he announced in 2009 that Venezuela held vast reserves of coltan, which he termed blue gold. He explicitly connected it to African conflicts. Noting wars fought over the... Sorry, niggas, I need glasses, guys. And he put this in black and tiny white font. But noting wars fought over the minerals used in the long-range rockets, the Orinoco mining arc, spanning 111,843 square kilometers across Bolivia and the Amazonian states, contains documented deposits of coltan, titanium ore, kazantrite, tin ore, rare earth elements, bauxite, gold, and speculative lithium reserves. See, lithium, that's what I know. Lithium, the batteries.
Bauxite and other strategic materials that you need to build electronics and weapons. And for years, China was working with the Venezuelan government and routing those materials into Chinese-controlled processing. In other words, China's not just buying these things on the open market. It was putting itself at the center of the supply chains, right at the source. Now, from the perspective of the US, that's a nightmare. It's not good. It means materials that are important to US national defense are being extracted under the supervision of its competitor, processed by that same competitor, and then reintroduced back into the market. Now that...
So basically, what they saying is somebody selling my product underneath my nose, boy.
There's a lot of leverage for China. So Venezuela then was not just about seizing oil. This is about denying them the leverage, denying control.
But what are we gonna do? We can't just, you know what I'm saying? How long we just gonna occupy Venezuela? That's the question.
Over being at the center of supply chains.
Venezuela just gonna be the 52nd state, nigga? What?
Denying their military presence, denying their currency experimentation, right? Denying this geographic proximity we talked about. And it's forcing negotiations to happen on terms that are much more favorable to the United States. And even though there is a lot of pushback from some media saying, this is not lawful, right? This is not allowed. The president shouldn't be doing this. The truth is,
nah, you need
international law doesn't mean anything.
Doesn't matter. For real. International law, honestly, like, to an extent. Like, let's not all nuke each other, you know? And it's nice to have some agreements like that we all kind of agree. But when the shit needs to be broken, it needs to be broken. Like, if I'm a country, I don't answer to no other country. I don't answer to their laws. Who? Come on.
Without a nation's ability to enforce them. If you can't enforce the law, all you can do is just condemn them.
Condemn.
Okay, then. So then the question is, well, if this is how the world
That's
works
that
right now,
Bellas.
then what might happen next? What I'm about to explain is not the official policy, but it is a very common working theory in certain geopolitical circles, and once you understand it, a lot of recent events will hopefully start to make a lot more sense. And the theory goes something like this. What we're watching is a consolidation of power between the world's major superpowers. Each power is trying to lock down what it considers non-negotiables based on their geographies. Now, in this theory, Russia's priority is Ukraine because...
Okay, yeah, this actually does make really... He did point this out. Like, it makes really... Like, when you start looking at the grand scheme of things, Russia is looking at Ukraine because Ukraine has all of that ports. And, like, they need that warm water. They need that stuff. China... We don't really know what China wants. They just kind of being greedy, to be honest. Like, y'all gonna have 95% of the minerals and you gonna come to Venezuela to take their minerals? Nigga, please. China kind of just being greedy, but we over here, we need the minerals because we ain't got them.
Ukraine sits between Russia and the sea.
And everybody else kind of just is like, you know,
losing Ukraine to NATO permanently locks them out of maritime access and leaves them strategically boxed in. China's priority is Taiwan. Taiwan is all about semiconductors, industrial supply chains,
that's what they want,
and control of the Western Pacific.
That itty bitty island is what China's about. I ain't gonna lie, China is lacking. Because if it was us, we would have been there. Ain't no way. You saw how quick we was into Puerto Rico? Man, ain't no way. If it was the United States, we would have been in there. I'm just being for real.
From China's perspective, Taiwan is a very important core strategic asset. And the United States' priority is the Western Hemisphere. That's Venezuela.
Like, that's unfair.
That's Cuba.
Yeah.
That's really anything. Any place where rival powers could build military bases, control resources, or reroute supply chains in a way that could threaten U.S. leverage.
Now too.
Okay, so then the next question is, what's next? And it seems like the next big move is most likely going to be Iran. Iran is important.
Now, see, that's the question. Now, why the hell does Iran matter if Iran ain't in the Western Hemisphere? What's going on, Andre?
For a couple different reasons. First, Iran controls the northern edge of something called the Strait of Hormuz, which is one of the most important choke points in the entire world. Roughly 1/5 of all the oil in the world moves through that small stretch of water every single day. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Iran, Qatar, all of their exports pass through that area. That gives Iran leverage way beyond its size, right? This is the classic Rimland power. Now, there is a second reason, though. Iran supplies huge amounts of cheap oil to China and Russia, which the US doesn't want. Now, all of this is done.
Man, but if we go after Iran, man, I don't know. People gonna get mad, bro.
Outside of US enforcement. That weakens US sanction power, and it makes China more independent of the US than the US wants. It's not just China. Iran also coordinates closely with Russia, especially since 2022. Iran supplies drones and weapons and all sorts of things that the US doesn't like. And then, of course, there's reason number 3, which is the elephant in the room, which is Israel. Iran's threat to Israel is one of the most important reasons that the United States treats Iran differently from almost everybody else. Israel is very important to the US because Israel is also one of the biggest buyers of US military technologies. And it's almost a proxy of security in the Middle East. So it's almost like the US can defend its interests in the Middle East without actually physically being there.
That makes sense, yeah.
So Iran fits perfectly into everything that we talked about. It uses rimland geography to threaten energy. It supplies oil to adversaries like China and Russia. It goes around the settlement network, which is the US dollar. It pressures an ally. And Iran's interests were also present in Venezuela. So there's a lot of reasons, but more than likely, this theory says Iran is next for the US, Taiwan is next for China, and of course, Ukraine might fall to Russia. Now, none of this guarantees that's what happened.
You tweeted this, bro? Wait, hold up. Iran is looking for freedom, perhaps like never before. The USA stands ready to help President Donald J. Trump. Because we see the riots and everything going on in Iran right
Next.
now. That's
but
crazy.
It does sort of explain the general idea of where it could be going next. Overall, though, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Andre, you need to update your photo, bro. You kind of look high and you look nothing like that.
Let me know down in the comments below. As always, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Smash the...
That's crazy. That's crazy, chat. So do y'all think we going to a war with Iran next? Because I'll tell you right now, we go to war with Iran, I mean, China's just going to go get Taiwan real quick, pack it up, and then they looking at us. Is that fair to say? Because people, they going to be pissed. If they get all of this oil from Iran, and then we start controlling Iran in the Strait of Hormuz and control a fifth of the what? And Russia ain't gonna be happy with that. And I know I ain't carrying my happy black ass over there to Iran. I know that's for damn sure. Niggas ain't going to war nowadays like they used to be. That's facts. But anyways, Midi Gang. That's it for this video today. If y'all wanted to know more about this facts and all of this intel, go over to the Schmitty Gang over at lschmitty.twitch.tv. You know what I'm saying? But without further ado, that's been Schmitty Gang's presumptions and everything. And yeah, I'll catch y'all in the next one. Mitty